Passive income is a very weird word because the truth is nothing is truly passive when it comes to making money. It's simply a degree of how passive it really is. In real estate, even if you own rental properties and you have property management, you still have to manage the property manager. So that being said, there is some work to be done to earn $100,000 a year in passive income with real estate. So I'm going to give you 3 ways to achieve that goal, and they all vary in difficulty for how passive they truly are. So before we jump into it, if you're new to my channel, my name's Ryan Pineda. I'm a real estate investor and entrepreneur. I flipped over 500 homes and we've got 550 plus units under management right now. And I have 6 current businesses doing over 7 to 8 figures a year. So let's talk about path number 1, and that is the traditional rental income path. For most people, they're just simply thinking about cash flow. And so if you want to make $100,000 in a year, you basically need to figure out how to make $9,000 a month. Now, getting here with traditional rentals is pretty difficult because once you take into consideration all the actual expenses of running a rental, very few properties really cash flow. Most new investors might know the common expenses like your mortgage and property management, but they don't factor in things like vacancy or CapEx. To give you an example, if a property rents for $2,000 a month and your mortgage is $1,500, you're still going to probably end up breaking even or potentially losing money every month. That's because your property management might be 10%, so that's $150. If you factor in you're going to be vacant for 1 month out of the year, that's going to cost you $1,500 in mortgage. So you spread that out over the rest of the year is basically another $150. Then you've got to account for CapEx, which is basically all of the repairs that you're going to have to make to the property as you hold it. For example, if you're going to hold this property for the next 5 to 10 years, you know that you're going to have to replace carpets. You're going to have to paint again. You're going to have just nicks and bruises on the property as time goes on. You might even have to do a big replacement like a roof or an AC, depending on if you replaced it when you initially bought it. So basically, you're going to come up with this budget that you're going to spend for the next 5 years on capital expenditures. And if this budget is, say, $10,000, you're going to divide that by 60 months because that's 5 years, and you're basically going to get $166. So once you factor all these things in, that $2,000 a month in rent you're making is not cash flowing $500 because your mortgage is $1,500. You're actually breaking even because of all of these expenses that come with running a rental property. So the question to ask yourself is, well, how the heck are you going to get there if you're barely making cash flow on these houses? Well, there are a few ways to get around this. The first way is the way I wouldn't recommend, and that's just putting more money down so that you have a lower mortgage payment and you can actually cash flow each month. In this scenario, let's say you're now cash flowing $300 a month. Well, in that case, you're going to need 30 properties at $300 a month to make $9,000 a month. And for most people, that's just not going to be possible. So what else could you do? Well, another thing you can do is get into Airbnb. I've had Airbnbs for over 5 years now, and they've been wildly successful. When I initially bought my first one back in 2017, I bought it for $200,000 and it was renting for over $4,000 a month. My mortgage was only $1,200, and so we were making over $4,000 a month in gross revenue. Now, I still had to pay my cleaners and property management and everything else, but I was netting over $1,000 a month. And since I've held that property for the last 5 years, the rents have increased and the value of the property has more than doubled. So Airbnb has been really good to me over the years, and I am a big fan of it. And we actually have a program called ProHost where we can teach you how to get started in Airbnb today, even if you don't have a lot of money. So if you're interested in that, you can go to wealthyprohost.com or click the link below to book a call with our team. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, if you're gonna go with the rental play to get to $100,000 a month in passive income, Airbnb is probably gonna be your quickest way. You could definitely buy homes in the Midwest that might cash flow better on paper, but for me, I'm an appreciation investor. I love investing in markets like Vegas and California, and I know a lot of people have success in other markets like Texas and Florida and other appreciating markets. Just because I know if I'm gonna hold a property for the next 5 to 10 years, I would rather get appreciation because that's gonna make me way more money than any kind of cash flow would, which is going to tie into one of our other methods here later on. But as I finish up here on the rental part, if we're saying that cash flow is not that great other than Airbnb, why would I want to buy rentals? Well, with rentals, you're gonna get so many amazing benefits. There are 4 key pillars when you buy a rental that you're going to get as a benefit. Number 1 is appreciation. We already talked about that. real estate always goes up in the long run, so you are going to get appreciation, which is great. The second reason is cash flow. We've also talked about that. So if you're able to build in enough margin between your rent and what you're paying and all your expenses, then you can make cash flow every single month. The third reason is principal pay down. So with all of this cash flow coming in, you're also paying down the debt on your mortgage. And so this is an amazing thing with real estate, unlike other investments where not only is my debt decreasing because my renters are paying for it, but the value of the home is also increasing because of appreciation. And so your equity starts to widen tremendously by holding rental property. But the fourth pillar, and it's probably my favorite one, are the tax advantages. By buying real estate, you can get more tax deductions than any other vehicle out there, hands down. There's something called depreciation that allows you to write off losses that didn't necessarily happen. To break it down, depreciation works like this. You're able to write off the building value of a home over 27 and a half years. So let's say that I have a house that's worth $300,000 and we're saying that the land is worth $25,000 and the building is worth $275,000. In this scenario, I could take the building value, which is $275,000, and divide it by 27 and a half years. Well, that gives you $10,000 each year that you get to take as a write-off on your taxes. And that money adds up because if you're in the top tier tax bracket and you're paying 40%, that means you're getting a $4,000 write-off every year. But to take it one step even further, and what all the big shots do, is they get what's called cost segregation. And with the cost segregation, you're allowed to take a much bigger deduction for depreciation in year one of buying that property. So in this case of buying the $300,000 home, with a cost segregation, there's a chance that I could get a $100,000 write-off in year one. Now, there's a lot of mechanics to how that works. I don't want to get into that today, but just know tax benefits are actually one of the reasons why people buy real estate, and maybe one of the biggest reasons why the wealthy do. Because once you start getting a $100,000 tax deduction, that's $40,000 that I would have paid in taxes anyway. And now I get to put it back in my pocket. So when you start thinking about how you can cash flow, one thing you need to factor into your equation is how much you're actually saving this year that you would have given away to the government. In this scenario I'm talking about, if I go buy $1 million of property right now, and I go do a cost segregation and I get a $300,000 write-off, well, I would have paid over $100,000 in taxes on that $300,000. And so even if the property does not cash flow, the fact that I got to keep $100,000 in my pocket is basically like making $100,000 in passive income. All I had to do was buy that property. I didn't have to do anything else to get this money in my pocket. So that could kind of be a secondary path that we talk about, but I'll include it here in this first path of just buying rental properties. The moral of the story is you don't necessarily have to only look at just the cash flow you're receiving as passive income. You really need to look at the tax savings that you're getting from buying the properties, because that's a different kind of passive income that's not necessarily coming into your pocket. It's money you would have had to give. So let's talk about path number 2 to getting there then. If we know that cash flows one way and it might be somewhat hard due to cash flow being non-existent with higher rates, how else can you make $100,000 a year in real estate passively? Well, you can go the method of buying rentals and flipping them years down the road. So to execute this plan, you're gonna have a longer time frame. It's not like you're gonna go make $100,000 a year passively in year one. This requires you to start buying rentals in the right markets that are going to appreciate. If you do this, you'll be able to sell them off for six-figure profits down the road. For example, I was telling you about the Big Bear property I bought in 2017 for $200,000. That property is now worth $450,000. So by just buying that one property, I could go and sell it now and make a $250,000 profit, which is basically 2 years of passive income that I'm looking for. So if you want to go this method, it's actually not that hard. It's way easier than method 1. Just simply buy one property a year. Now, once you've built up this property stack for 5 years and you haven't sold any, in year 6, sell the property you bought in year 1. It now has 5 years of appreciation. You also had principal pay down. You may have made some cash flow. You also got some tax benefits, and you're now going to sell it, and you're probably going to make a six-figure profit if you bought correctly. And then you simply rinse and repeat. In year 7, you're going to sell the property you bought in year 2, and all along the way, you're still buying properties, replenishing the stash. And if you really want to get aggressive with it, you could take the money you're profiting from the property sales and 1031 exchange it into the next deal. Then you're not paying any tax on the gain, and you're getting another property that you can go sell later on and get money. Now you might be saying, Ryan, how would I make the money if I'm just just reinvesting it into the next deal and doing a 1031 exchange? Well, you can actually do a cash out refinance on a 1031 and not have to pay any taxes at all. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, a 1031 exchange is simply when you sell a piece of real estate, and instead of taking the profit and going to your bank account, the government allows you to exchange that property for a better property. So you're going to take this property that you just sold, and you're going to go take those funds and now buy a new property with those funds through an intermediary who's going to handle the transaction for you. Now, once you've sold and then bought this new property, you now own it and you don't have to pay any tax on the gain. But the cool thing is, now that you own this property, you can do whatever you want with it. If you bought a really good deal, you can now cash out refinance on it and pull some of that equity out, say $100,000. And now you've got $100,000 in your bank account, and you didn't pay any tax on getting the $100,000 or selling the original property. So this is a great way to make $100,000 passively, and all you have to do is just buy a property every single year. Now imagine if you bought 2 a year, or 3 a year, or 4 a year. Now you're gonna start making a lot more than $100,000, and your net worth is gonna start to explode and increase. To give you another example, back in 2019, I bought a flip for $525,000. We ended up putting about $150,000 into it, and we tried to flip it but couldn't. So I ended up keeping it as a rental. Fast forward a few years, that property is now worth $1.2 million, and I'm in the process of selling it and making over $400,000. And also along the way, I was making a lot of cash flow on that property. It was renting out for $6,000 a month, and my mortgage was $4,000. And by the way, I could absolutely keep renting out that property and be great, but I know that I'd rather have $400,000 from it and go find the next thing to invest that $400,000 in, because I can make my money move quicker. So selling off rentals is a great strategy to get $100,000 a year passively. Now let's go into strategy number 3. So this strategy is the easiest of the bunch, but it's going to require that you have capital saved up in order for it to work. So essentially, instead of you trying to go find all these deals to buy and manage yourself, you're just going to invest in a fund. Now, most real estate funds are targeting a 20+% IRR. IRR stands for internal rate of return. And this is basically how much you made each year once the deal is finally complete. And by complete, I mean either sold or refinanced. Now, here's the thing with real estate and funds. You're not really making much money during the years of cash flow. You might make 3 to 5% on your money those years, but what's gonna happen is you're gonna make your real money once the property is sold. And so you're gonna get all of your investment back plus a large profit if everything went right. And in turn, what happens is you now take all of that profit and you spread it out across the life of the investment and see what the IRR was. And that's typically how it gets to 20+%. Now, obviously, every fund's different. There are some that don't do as good. There are some that do a lot better, but I'm just giving you a general explanation. So basically, to make $100,000 a year at 20% IRR, you would need $500,000, because 20% of $500,000 is $100,000. So you do need a lot of capital in order to make that happen, but this one is the most passive out of all of them. You don't have to find any deals. You don't have to manage. You literally just give your money to whoever that real estate fund is, and then you're just chill. And if that sounds like something you want to do, I have a fund called Pineda Capital, which you guys can go check out at pinedacapital.com and book a call with my team today. We're actually starting a brand new single family real estate fund where we're going to be buying houses here in Las Vegas that I believe are going to appreciate and have massive value in the next 5 to 10 years. And so if you want extremely passive income where you don't have to do anything, you just invest and sit back, then this is for you. But anyways, I hope this opened your eyes to how to build passive income in real estate. Hope it opened your mind to some possibilities. And if you like this video, make sure you check out this next one that they're playing right here, and it'll help you out on your real estate investing journey. Thanks for watching.